Stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing and start shooting. You do not have any excuse not to get off the sidelines and start making video for yourself, for your organization, for the people that are around you. Most people aren't doing it because they're lying in wait for some mystical, magical, perfect moment of opportunity. And this is just the wrong way to think about getting your organization or your friend group's digital life together. The world's not going to move one drop by itself. Your life's not going to move one drop by itself. When it comes to promoting yourself and talking about yourself, you are probably going to have to take matters into your own hands. And this doesn't have to be super hard. The production values, the people that are involved, the locations you shoot, the quality of the audio and the video, all of that stuff is not so important. You know, it is tertiary to the actual work that you're doing. And as long as you are consistent and comfortable, I can pretty surely promise you that whatever you're working on is good enough to get the job done. I spent a lot of time putting together an ad for our own company last week. There were a lot of headaches. If you go to the website, you'll be able to see the final version. I want to talk a little bit about how we did it, because this was a couple of hours worth of shooting. There were a couple of very smart ideas that made the ad look maybe a tiny bit more professional than the norm, without a whole lot of extra in the way of effort. Now, for the sake of being like as visually complete as I possibly can, I'm going to show like a few seconds of the ad just in case, like, hey, what's going on? What does it look like now? I don't want to go anywhere else.
Artists, entrepreneurs, community leaders. Most of them are underwater on social media because they're doing it completely the wrong way. You're posting to attract that 3% of people that are ready to listen to your album or go and vote or read your book. Most people would do anything to have that kind of community, but they're ignoring the 97% of people who are just there to hang out with their friends. You need to reach more people without it becoming a constant source of stress. You need to take back your free time. We turn your existing ideas and content into life-changing social media so you can focus on the things that matter most to your community. You don't have to worry about the algorithm.
Now, I could go on and on with that, but I think that you kind of get it. We don't need to drag this out. Let's talk about some of the elements that you saw. The first was the script. And you're going to need to really think about your message and the emotions. And really, the way I like to do things is I think about the kind of problems rather, that a person who has that problem might be going through during the day. And if you can make like a little montage in your head of like the weirdest or worst or most stressful thing that you've gone through, or that your prospect has gone through, or stories that you've heard, or words that you remember. If you're able to talk to a lot of clients, obviously this is a little bit easier. Next, you want to think visually and create a storyboard. And that means just taking your script and breaking it into scenes and visualizing how all of the shots come together to tell your story. Now, my storyboard for this, I will admit, was not at all visually impressive. And in fact, it was like a list of shots and what it looked like. But, you know, your finished product is probably not going to match your storyboard. And your storyboard doesn't have to be some flawless work of art either. There are lots of ugly, ridiculous storyboards out there, and you can be one of them as long as your product is finished. Second of all, your storyboard, it can be clips, time descriptions, whatever. B-roll will help you a lot with this. It's the stuff that adds credibility elements to your video. And you can use stock footage that you got from Getty or iStock or Envato. And you even saw a little bit of stock footage in the work that I did. But you want to also have stuff from your community or from people around you or from real locations. And just having a mix of all of these means that for every excuse that a person has, this person is too high budget, this person is too low budget, I'm not this, I'm not that. I really try to methodically attack every excuse that's in the book, right? And eventually you're going to have to find time to shoot. And our shoot was not a huge thing. You know, we used a very good cell phone camera. We had a little rig to hold it. We had lights on the side, although you could see it was a bright day. We had a lavalier microphone, which you could see in some of the shots. And it's not like I was really trying to hide it or anything. I want the audio to be as good as it could be, especially because it's a windy day. It's getting cold outside, and you don't want to be swishing and wishing too much where you can't even be heard. So a mic helps you with that. You can also get people to help you. That means getting a lot of perspectives and a lot of ideas from a lot of people that can drag you out of your comfort zone. And, post editing, all of the post game stuff, that's important. Subtitles, all those other things make a video great, but making it clean and legible and sensible is probably going to be good enough. I want to talk in a little more detail about B-roll. Social media runs off of attention, but sales don't come from attention. Money usually comes from being seen as useful, helpful, credible, consistent. B-roll can do all of that if you let it. And it is footage that enriches the visual of your video. So I was not just some guy talking about, free time, social media, whatever. My words were probably a very small part of that message compared to all of the kind of situations, all of the kind of use cases. That B-roll is running in the background as literal evidence, and it's showing journeys in real life communities. It's showing past experience. It's asking people to engage. And we just organized this in Google Drive. We've got a folder that's got B-roll, and then we have a subfolder that says Ghost Coast Video, internal advertising. And then we have shoots. Then we have work sessions, and they're all hanging around underneath there. So that when we have to communicate something, it is there, it is labeled, and it works. And it lets people see that story from different perspectives, and they don't have to trust just my word for it. And we take that list of footage and we annotate it so we know a little bit about what each one has inside of it, what the keywords are, so that eventually if we use a tool like DaVinci Resolve, we can be able to type in a word and pull it up. All of those things come together to kind of help us tell that story. When they look at that B-roll, they've got community footage, they've got a website, they've got our previous work, they've got testimonials, they've got samples. All of those were in that very short video, and that's pretty cool. I want to talk about storyboarding. This is not just for filmmakers. I mean, it helps if you're making a movie. I watched a YouTube video from this guy, David Sandberg. He's a horror movie director. He also did both of the Shazam movies. He did a 20-minute video. It's on YouTube. And he talked about how he made storyboards. And all of these storyboards were not extremely artistic. This guy was not a great visual artist, but he had a great sense of clarity in what he drew. And he did this during the video. He was showing the storyboard and then just wiping, and then you could see the finished product. And he put a lot of stress on shooting the visual in a way that made him comfortable. The guy didn't want to draw, so he went and got action figures, holds them up. If he wants the camera to make a certain motion, he gets his cell phone and he moves things around. It is fine to look amateurish sometimes. Perfectionism is narcissistic. If you're not sure what to use and when, just shoot multiple versions. And, if you're going to a really expensive, professional, high-end production, we're going to shoot you from multiple angles and charge you for each camera. So if you want the back of your head and both sides and straight from the front, and you want to swap between the three, like you're a reverend at a megachurch, you can do it, but it's going to cost money. And the easiest way to do that kind of effect is just to do multiple takes. And this comes with problems too. I don't want to take that lightly. Your time is being multiplied by 3. That's not great. But if we had 3 cameras and we got 3 people to hold them, that would also be a pain in the butt, right? So there's no way to get across giving a little extra effort. For this ad, we shot straight ahead. We shot from each side. We shot from behind. We also shot an exclusively audio take. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 5 takes because I also did one that was me at a distance. and none of it made the final cut, but we sure did shoot it, and it might be used for something else later. And when I was editing, I'm in that editing bay, and I'm thinking to myself, what if I need some shot to connect to things, an establishing shot? I got it. Um, it's also good to integrate real places with the places that you film. Like, it's cool when you can take a shot and bring it to life. Knowing a good location to shoot will make that look a lot easier. And sometimes we work with people who have great places to shoot, but just don't use it. We had a client that worked out of a huge compound, and they only shot a few videos each year. Throw our hands up in the air. We were pulling our hair out. Hey, just take out your camera right now and start talking. We'll do the rest. Wherever you are, there's something engaging. There's something beautiful about where you are. I think that unless you're living in the Dakotas and there's nothing there, but even if you live in the Dakotas, there's actually lots of nature. There's local landmarks. There's so much that can fit into a camera frame. If you've seen the movie Nebraska with Bruce Dern, there's so many interesting things in just Americana, gas stations, corn, wind, things that you think are boring aren't. Your local lore is important, or at least interesting to somebody out there. If you arrive in a city, if you live in New York or Atlanta, you can just get on a bus and go somewhere. But you don't even have to leave your own neighborhood. What's in walking distance? If you're looking at architecture, what's nearby? Is there a church? Is there a gas station? Is there a college? Is there any cultural institution that's not going to chase you away as soon as you step down? You should also think about nature. When you go outside, there are so many backdrops that can fit inside a frame. If there are trees, if there are rivers, you've got gardens, flowers, plants. If you've got enough of anything green to fill a frame, just get in there. Your work is done. Nature is a great collaborator. What about local monuments? Sometimes something's really boring to you because you've lived around it for a long time, but it's really novel to a person that doesn't know about any of your hometown, and maybe they don't see it outside of TV. If you think of the Rocky Steps from Philadelphia, that's like a corny place. If you live in Philadelphia, it's a tourist trap. But if you're from outside of there, you're like, hey, there's some novelty there. And no matter where you are, there's probably something that's equivalent, that's locally ingrained, but nationally, there's something new to learn. And of course, you've got to shoot what you got. If you've got a job and they want you to be at that cubicle, you've still got to shoot. Think about the tool that you're literally working with, because it has the power to isolate anything. Index cards, business cards, shoe boxes, toys, props, walls, small backdrops, post-it notes. Bringing emphasis to these things and letting people look at them is almost always visually interesting for a few seconds. And if you've ever held something in your hands and looked at it, even a cheap phone case has ridges, verticality, horizontality, depth, dimension. And just by virtue of the fact that a real person made it, even if it came out of a factory, it's more interesting than a blank texture from Canva, for sure. Right? For sure. How are you going to publish and share your videos once they're finished? I've seen lots and lots of organizations make video and not do anything with it. And this isn't just psychological. I've seen people pay for video and not publish it. Good Lord, what is going on? What technology are you using? You've got so many gadgets, so many people, so many priorities. Are you using what you have? I've seen in the biomedical field, these guys are playing with microscopes. They're trying to solve the human condition, and it's running on software that is Windows 95. It is from the Stone Age. It is museum exhibit, and they are still using that technology. I read a story the week before about hospitals that get infected with ransomware and have to pay, some elite hacker that hacked the hospital because they hacked some super outdated technology that the hospital has to have in order to run. So you've got to look at what your team already knows how to use. And for your core team, this is not some specialized piece of data. Ask them what tools they already use and like to use. The more familiar they are with it, the less you have to teach them. So, Google, Trello, Slack, tools that they already use, integrate them with your work. And if you're looking, you really want to ask yourself, if you're looking at more specialized software, and by more specialized, I mean more expensive, is this going to help me accomplish my vital tasks more quickly? Is it going to help me bring my target audience into the work that I'm doing? And we've got paid tools. I'm using StreamYard right now. It saves assets. It makes overlays. It holds things together. If I want to just physically show you something, like a sample of work or something like that, I can just click it and it'll come up. Like, for example, if I say, here's my podcast, boom, here's how we do podcasting. And it's pretty simple. It's just as simple as I put my face there and it's done. We also use Dropbox, which lets you share and store files. I have files for years and years to go back to, and I don't have to worry about paying for backup. I've got Dropbox. Later.com. It controls social media scheduling. And once you've done it, you've got your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, your Twitter. You don't have to open a new tab and do them all. You can kind of schedule them all at once. And honestly, this sounds absurd, but I'm on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, with a lot of similar content, which is pretty crazy. And that's just from having good scheduling and being ahead of time. So you want to pinch pennies, but you also want to think about, is this going to help me grow it? And it's often useful to look for that kind of software that you can buy once and use forever if it does something very vital. But, if an app charges you a monthly fee, the odds are good that it's going to plug into other apps. And the bigger that your technology stack gets, the more that you're going to need one tool to plug into another one. Zapier is hard to get around. It automates transcriptions, formatting, posting, publishing, taking things from one app and putting them into another one. Or if somebody sends a form, sending an email, preparing a draft statement, something like that. All of that automation takes time, and it takes time to use the tool effectively, and it takes money to have access to it at all. And that, balancing all of that, is part of your technology stack. I think if you're doing anything that's at all serious, that actually helps people, you're going to run into organized opposition, even if it's something that you think everybody's in support of. Like, for example, power. Utilities are expensive, and everybody wants their power bill to be lowered. But weirdly enough, it often is excruciatingly high. And people have to form companies and groups and coalitions to fight for just lower rates. You'll find that large institutions, whether it's the power company or city hall or whatever it is, are going to be opposed even when it doesn't make logical sense. So coalitions can be a help, finding people that fit your cause, reaching out to them, building relationships with them in meetings over time. You can plan campaigns, synchronize meetings, and schedule events where people from all of the organizations are talking. And this can be physical, obviously, but it could also be like a Zoom call. And if you've got a local organization and you don't feel like there is a scene like this, scheduling a weekly meeting with community organizations is a good place to start. But exactly what are you doing together? Well, you've got a couple of options. Number one, co-creating content. Look for opportunities to collaborate on webinars, podcasts, Q&A sessions, town halls. When you can share that platform, you have higher reach. What about petitions or landing page? What can people sign up to that will get them involved? Can you share in all that data? And can you follow up? And if you're doing a good job making follow-up part of your organization's DNA, then maybe you're following up and your coalition partners aren't. But you've got to look for ways to create initiatives. If you can summarize that Q&A into a fact sheet, if you can make something that people can use as they make their phone calls to city council reps or prepare to vote or go to march, it's pretty good. And you can always use that data to steer what the coalition does next. And if it doesn't want to be steered, if it's too politically disparate, the more access to information that you have from people who are really engaging with your message is always a good thing. You're going to have a lot more information and a lot more access than you might from doing things on a solo basis. But let's talk about the press. A lot of people think of getting to the press as the finish line for their story. And if they can put together the right people and tell the right story, the press will get a hold of it and then it's over. But it often does not work that way. You're working very hard on a cause, you show it to a reporter or something, and they're not interested. And if that happens, you feel like there's nothing else that you can do. And number one, you want to look at people in the real world who are interested in what you're doing and already have sway with reporters. You don't want to have to build all this stuff in terms of making these connections if you don't have to. Spend an afternoon and make phone calls and talk to the people who are connected with the issue and see if they can skip you ahead of the line. A person who's a referral is more powerful than anything that I'm going to share with you here. But however, you can cause an impact by making this as, low friction as possible. That means not being too technical, not being too jargony, but really thinking about who is involved. What are the stakes? What do they stand to gain? What do they stand to lose? How is this an immediate problem? Why does this need to be reported now instead of next year? Are we talking about just a new development and an evergreen problem, or are we talking about something that needs to be solved in a set amount of time? And if you're talking about something where the clock is ticking, you've got to make sure that you're talking about that. So don't rely on the reporters to do this stuff. Google stories that are like the thing you're struggling with. If you're into housing, you need to make a list of reporters in your town that are into housing. If they were interested last year, they'll be interested this year. And you can think of your story as part of a larger story. Don't look at your press releases as the only campaign you're running. You want to run this in cohesion with advertisement, social media pushes, things that generate actions, and plug them into a Zoom room or StreamYard room or something like that so that you can talk to those reporters in more detail. And really, this is all about making those permanent messages that can help you be remembered when you get seen. I think that's it. Thanks for watching/reading. You can visit ghostcoast.video/newsletter for more information, and always just stay plugged in to where we're at. But you can also use whatever you're using. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. We ain't hard to find. Thanks a lot. Have a